Welcome to American Catholic History. If you like our podcast, be sure to follow us, give us a 5-star rating, and a great review wherever you get your podcasts. Also, please become a supporter of AmericanCatholicHistory.org/support. I'm Noelle Heaster-Crow.
And I'm Tom Crow.
Today we're talking about the only person to be buried in the Cathedral Basilica of the Immaculate Conception in Denver, Colorado. It's not a bishop or a priest, or even a religious brother or sister. It's Julia Greeley, a woman born into slavery in Missouri who dedicated her life to caring for others.
Yeah, this is one of those stories that really makes you look at your own life and wonder, what am I doing with my life?
I know. She was so utterly selfless and so eager to help others, including others who had it easier than she did in many ways.
Truly, she is presently a servant of God, and I can't imagine her beatification and canonization will take any longer than absolutely necessary. She's almost unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a too good to be true sort of story. But fortunately for all of us, she was a very real person. So let's start by talking about where she came from.
Yes, so Julia Greeley was born into slavery in Hannibal, Missouri, which is where Mark Twain was from, sometime in the 1830s or 1840s. Since she was a slave, a careful record wasn't kept. She and her mother were owned by a very cruel man, and one day when her mother was being whipped, the whip caught Julia's right eye, seriously damaging it. It was never treated properly, and it never fully healed.
In January of 1865, 3 months before the end of the Civil War, the state of Missouri outlawed slavery. They had to pass a law since the Emancipation Proclamation of 1863 only applied to the states in rebellion, and Missouri was a border state. Suddenly, Julia Greeley, who was in her 20s or 30s at the time, was a free woman.
And once free, she took on work as a housekeeper, maid, and nanny for a St. Louis doctor whose wife was from one of the wealthiest families in St. Louis. In 1878, Julia decided to move to Denver to serve in a similar role for the sister of the mother of this family, Julia Gilpin, who was a devout Catholic wife of the first governor of the Colorado Territory. She worked in their home in Denver, scrubbing and cooking and taking care of the children, and she had a small apartment of her own.
But from early on in Denver, her heart was with the poor, the children, and all those in need. By day, she would work for the Gilpins, but as she was out and about, she would use her earnings to help the poor and needy.
In 1880, Julia became Catholic at the brand new Sacred Heart Church in Denver, in part due to the influence of Mrs. Gilpin. She became a daily communicant, and she fasted daily until noon. When asked why she never ate breakfast, she said that communion was her breakfast.
And she was deeply devoted to the parish's patron, the Sacred Heart of Jesus. She saw in it the deep wells of mercy and love, and desired to share that devotion. Every first Friday, which is traditionally the day of devotion to the Sacred Heart, she would walk all over Denver to deliver Sacred Heart pamphlets and other Catholic material to all the firehouses in the city. Estimates say that she would walk about 20 miles each of those Fridays to get to every firehouse in the city.
And she did this for decades, even as her arthritis got really bad. She knew that firefighters had a very dangerous job, and many of them were from poor Catholic families, so she wanted to make sure they had the spiritual comfort and strength that they needed in case they died in the line of duty.
The Jesuits at Sacred Heart Parish regarded her as the most zealous promoter of devotion to the Sacred Heart in the parish. But she didn't give the pamphlets just to the Catholics. She would share her love of the Sacred Heart with everyone because, as she said simply, they are all God's children.
When the Gilpins' marriage sadly broke up, Julia left their service and moved around a bit, living for a time in Wyoming and New Mexico, making money by taking odd jobs, cleaning and cooking. Eventually, she settled back in Denver and devoted herself to caring for the poor. She used her meager earnings, she was only making about $10 to $12 per month, to provide for families who had even less. When she didn't have enough of her own money to provide for others' needs, she would beg for what they needed.
She was known all over Denver by people of all faiths and all walks of life by two things: a little red wagon, which she was always pulling behind her with the stuff she had to deliver, whether it was food, coal, religious pamphlets, toys that she would repair to give to kids, clothes, whatever, and a big floppy black hat that she always wore.
She was also recognizable because she was frequently dabbing with her handkerchief at her bad eye, which was, again, never properly treated. Its condition resulted in a near constant ooze or tears.
But despite her ragged appearance, she was one of the most loved people in Denver. Some people called her a one-person St. Vincent de Paul society.
She was welcome in all homes of the parish. She was known in all convents in town, and the rectory kitchen at Sacred Heart was always available to her to come in for a meal. In 1901, she became a third-order Franciscan at the parish of St. Elizabeth of Hungary.
St. Elizabeth in 1901. Well, that probably means she knew Father Leo Heinrichs, the Franciscan priest who was assigned to St. Elizabeth in 1907. He also was well known for giving out food and clothing to the poor, and as we've talked about before, he was shot and killed in the middle of Mass in early 1908. Like we said, we talked about him in another episode.
There's actually a good chance they knew each other, since she got to know most everyone, especially everyone who was also interested in helping the poor. And it is amazing how many times the lives of these saintly figures just crisscross each other.
I know. I love finding those intersections. It's just so cool. Yeah. There are some particular stories which really show Julia's care for the needs and sensitivities of everyone. First is that after a while, she only made her deliveries at night.
Yes. She realized that the white families she was helping experienced embarrassment for receiving aid from a poor old black woman. So she began doing her deliveries at night so no one would see her, not the neighbors, nor even the recipients of the charity. To her, helping the poor mattered most. She knew this put her at risk, since it wasn't exactly safe for women, let alone black women, to be out by themselves at night, but helping the poor mattered most. The risk and personal inconvenience were not important.
And she had a special love for children. It was said that she loved children with the intensity found in the saints. She would arrange days in the park for groups of up to 10 children, and she would pack a lunch, get the kids together, and bring them on the trolley, joking with the conductor that they were all hers.
Yeah. Also, there was a time when she went to wash the floor for a white couple, the Urquharts. She could tell that they were Catholic, but she saw no children. When she asked about children, the woman said that their only child had died, and they were not able to have any more. Julia promised Mrs. Urquhart that there would be a little white angel running around the house. I will pray and you will see. And they did see. In fact, the only known photo of Julia is of her holding that child, Marjorie Urquhart, who was born in 1916.
In fact, Julia had a particular way of referring about praying for people.
Yeah, she'd say, I'll put you in the canoe with a lot of others I pray for.
What an interesting...
Yeah, I have no idea where the canoe imagery comes in,
right.
But that's what she would say.
Yeah. Well, she was always also looking for particular items for people in need. On one occasion, she was seen carrying a mattress on her back because a family needed one. On another occasion, she was pushing a baby stroller because she'd found a poor family that needed a baby stroller. So she went out and begged for one and was now delivering it. A Jesuit once found her with a broken doll, and she said she was going to fix it and give it to a child who didn't have one.
Yeah. She also asked the girls in one part of the city, a wealthier part, not to wear out their pretty dresses, but to give them to her before they were too worn out, so that she could give them to the poor girls in other parts of the city, so that those girls could look nice at dances. Her devotion to helping others at her own expense, financial and physical, knew no bounds. As she aged, arthritis racked her body, making her move a little more slowly, but she didn't stop.
No. It was a beautiful Friday morning on June 7th, 1918, when she took ill while walking to Mass. She went to a friend's house across from the rectory, and her condition worsened quickly. The priests were called, and she was anointed. She was taken to the hospital, but it was too late. She died later that day.
And in 1918, Friday, June 7th, was the feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus.
A fitting day for her to die.
Absolutely. Before her funeral mass, Julia lay in state in a chapel of Sacred Heart Parish. She was the first laity to be so honored in the Diocese of Denver.
And that day, an amazing thing happened. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of people came to pay their respects and to pray for her. What's remarkable is that no official announcement had gone out. Nothing in the paper, nothing posted around town. It was just word of mouth. The line of mourners filing past her tiny casket lasted for 5 hours.
Remarkable.
It included white, black, and Mexican, rich and poor, powerful and lowly. Everyone knew her, and everyone loved her.
Another amazing thing about it was that almost no one who came expected so many others also to be there. She was so generous and so kind to so many people without being public about it and without making a fuss. Most of the people who came really believed that they were among the very few people whom she had helped.
For many, she did the bulk of her charitable work at night, like we had talked about before, or hidden in other ways. And this was the first time any of them really came to understand just how much she did for so many people.
Her funeral was a solemn high mass offered by the pastor of Sacred Heart, and the subdeacon was Jesuit, whom Julia had cared for when he was a baby. She was laid to rest in the habit of the Franciscan order in Mount Olivet Cemetery.
Frances Wayne, a Denver Post reporter who covered Julia's funeral, wrote, "She was a woman with a wide-winged spirit. Her legacy included 85 years of worthy living, unselfish devotion, and a habit of giving and sharing herself and her goods."
People began praying for her intercession from early on, and that practice has never abated.
The cause for Julia Greeley's canonization was formally opened by Denver Archbishop Samuel Aquila in December 2016. In 2017, her remains were exhumed and transported to the Cathedral Basilica of the Immaculate Conception in Denver, where they were received in a solemn ceremony before being interred in a side chapel. This made her the first person to be buried in the Denver Cathedral, which opened in 1912.
In 2011, the Julia Greeley Guild was organized in the Archdiocese of Denver to gather information about Julia and push for her canonization. The Guild nowadays publishes a regular newsletter called The Little Red Wagon. Past issues are available on the Guild's website. Also on the website are a number of accounts of miracles attributed to Julia Greeley's intercession. Many miracles have been attributed to her intercession, and some are being examined by the Vatican. It really seems like it is only a matter of time before she is beatified and canonized.
In 2016, for the Holy Year of Mercy, the Archdiocese of Denver designated Julia Greeley as its official model of mercy. That's a lot of recognition for a woman born into slavery who never learned to read, write, or do arithmetic. But when you simply give yourself to the service of God and others, none of that really matters. What matters is love. This has been American Catholic History. If you enjoy American Catholic History, please become a supporter. We've got great perks for supporters. Get information on how to become a supporter and the perks at americancatholichistory.org/support.
Also on our website, sign up for our newsletter, learn more about Julia Greeley, see about our pilgrimages, and find other great stories from American Catholic history.
We also love the great reviews our listeners leave. Those and the 5-star ratings help others find us. You can email us feedback, questions, tips for episode topics, or other comments at feedback@americancatholichistory.org. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/American Catholic History, on Instagram at ACH_podcast, and follow us on Twitter at ACH1513. I'm Noelle Heaster-Crowe.
And I'm Tom Crow.
Thank you once again for joining us on American Catholic History, made possible by listeners like you.